I'm journalist Alison Jane Reid from Ethical-Hedonist magazine, and I'm here to meet Edwina Ehrman, the curator of the Fashion from Nature exhibition at the V&A. Hello, Edwina. And we're going to be exploring the fascinating historical relationship between fashion and the natural world, and to also look at the idea of fashion innovation. What was the spark which led you to create this extraordinary exhibition?
I've always wanted to do an exhibition about the relationship between fashion and nature. I've been a fashion curator for nearly 30 years, and it's always been on my personal agenda. And at the time, the balance was actually going to be more towards the way in which fashion has been inspired by nature than about the way in which fashion has used and exploited nature. My mind was ticking the whole time, and I realised that actually I hadn't got the balance right, and it had to be 75–80% about how fashion has used nature and exploited it, and how fashion depends on nature for absolutely every material resource.
What was the reaction when you decided to explore, the complex relationship between fashion, as you've just described, that it's not straightforward, that we're extraordinarily intoxicated by nature and its riches, but that very desire to flaunt nature is also its problem?
I think there was some disappointment initially, and some concerns that we would lose perhaps part of our core audience. But I tried to reassure people by saying, look, the only way sustainability is going to win through is if those sustainable garments have high fashion values.
They're beautiful. They've got to be
yes.
As beautiful and desirable
yes.
as mainstream
and they have
fashion.
to be fashion.
Yeah.
They've got to be fashion.
They've got to be pure fashion.
Good fashion. So I said we're going to be showing good fashion here. Let's
talk a bit more about fashion innovation. Stella McCartney is undoubtedly one of the great fashion innovators. She's been very, very adept at partnering with exciting manufacturing companies who are exploring other textiles.
Stella McCartney is a great supporter of materials innovation. She is also a great fashion designer.
One of the highlights of the exhibition is Stella McCartney's viscose trouser suit, and then that's juxtaposed with the Victorian dress, which is absolutely strewn with thousands of dead beetle cases. It's an extraordinary contrast. Does that really sum up, the dilemma of fashion?
People adore these fabrics decorated with beetle wing cases there, and jewel beetles are found all over the world, and we even have a few in Britain. They're like emerald. They're like really
they are like
emeralds.
Jewels.
They're like jewels. And so I wanted to, instead of brushing this under the carpet, the beetle wing cases are usually taken from live beetles and were collected by young children because they grow in forests near villages. So don't sweep these things under the carpet. Let's try and understand them culturally. And I think culturally they do make more sense.
And also, of course, botanists brought a lot of materials back, which
yes.
They brought specimens back and they brought plants back, which were then featured in botanical journals and became very fashionable, and that translated into fashion.
So yes, people love the effect, but there's a niggling worry and undercurrent to it. Fashion is a great expression of creativity.
And the imagination.
That creativity can create garments that we want to adorn our bodies with, but also that creativity can create better garments.
Let's talk more about fabric innovation. You've got some very exciting garments in this exhibition with really curious ideas. Leather from mushrooms. It looks extraordinary. You can't tell the difference. And also using Pinatex. And what I found really interesting is that pineapple fibre has been used before. Tell us about that, Edwina.
Pineapple fibre has been used for centuries to create cloth. So pineapple leaves, and that's where the fibres come from, have a coarse fibre and a very fine white fibre. It's very sheer and very white when it's used in its highest quality form. There's a lot of research going into bonded fibres at the moment, and so Pinatex have created a bonded pineapple fibre.
Which is being used by Pozu, who are making very fashionable shoes, and recently won the franchise to work with Star Wars.
Yes,
I think that's a very exciting development for sustainable
it
fashion
is,
and
and that's a
accessories.
bit like the celebrity angle again. Celebrities are very key. We were delighted when Emma Watson agreed to lend a dress which she'd commissioned from Calvin Klein, and Calvin Klein worked with EcoAge to create this spectacular but very, very, very sustainable garment, which she wore to the Met Gala in 2016, I think it was.
What is it actually made from?
Well, the main
Edwina?
body of it made from recycled plastic bottles.
That sends
And
a powerful message to her fans, to the world, doesn't
It
it?
is. If we're going to try and change mindsets, we have to understand the history of how this has come about. And one way in which I hope that maybe people can change the way they think about their clothes is to get beyond the surface. High fashion values is what the V&A is all about, and innovation is core to the story. And that is absolutely what the V&A was founded to do. It was founded to promote good design and to support the creative industries and to support innovation.
Let's talk about cotton. You know, cotton has always been perceived as this natural, pure fibre, but the reality is quite different. It's one of the biggest polluters on the planet.
Well, that's true, but I think it's very important that we reiterate the fact that cotton is a fantastic fibre, and one which, you know, I hope we will continue to use, but grown and produced in a better way,
In a more sustainable
way. Pollution is a big issue. It requires
a lot of
herbicide,
pesticides
yes.
and herbicides.
Yes, herbicides, pesticides, insecticides.
And also water, the
Yes.
water consumption is
The water
is not
consumption is
sustainable.
absolutely enormous.
So is organic cotton and sustainably grown the answer?
Organic cotton is certainly one way forward that we need to consider really, really seriously, I think.
It's grown in harmony with people and its environment. It's just a much more intelligent way of actually sustaining communities.
I agree, but we have to persuade consumers that they want organic cotton. And I think the consumer has a tough deal in this whole debate around sustainability. How do I make the right choice? So some shops tell me very boldly that they are using organic cotton. But labelling on the whole is very obscure. It doesn't necessarily tell you when something's been certified.
So it would be great to have a really clear, almost like a traffic light
Yes.
system of labelling, so that the consumer can look at a label on a garment and see this is fair trade, the cotton is organic, and see at a glance how that garment was produced and by whom.
We could even have something as simple as a green dot in a shop on a label for a shop that's really promoting sustainable fashion. When we ask in the exhibition what can we learn from the past, I think one thing we can learn from the past, a very positive message, is that education and activism work.
We seem to be moving in two directions. We've got David Attenborough and Blue Planet, and he's exposing the pollution and the reality of overconsumption and plastic waste in our oceans. But then on the other side we have technology which is speeding up, and this is enabling fast fashion to get even faster. Do you think that David Attenborough is going to have an impact?
I think that public figures, highly respected public figures like David Attenborough, are very, very important because they reach out to millions of people, not just in Britain but around the world. Humans are very fickle creatures. We hate the idea of a whale dying from hunger because its stomach is full of plastic bags. So I think we will modify our behaviours. Financial incentives definitely help. The 5p cost of a plastic bag have helped to reduce consumption in Britain. But I think that we are in the West, we have a very individualistic society, and we do not function in quite the same collective way that other cultures function. And so I think fast fashion works with that individualistic behaviour.
It encourages it, doesn't it?
It does
Absolutely
encourage it.
exploits the idea
Yes.
of the ego and the idea that you can have whatever you want now.
And ownership.
Yeah.
And I think what we have to try and do in terms of changing mindset is to be more collective. We don't always have to buy. I borrowed a dress for the opening party for Fashion from Nature. So you can share things, you can swap things, you can rent things, you can get dresses on subscription schemes. But I think what people need to get out of is this urge to buy. Because we don't actually need these garments. And the other thing about buying very cheap clothes is they don't last, they don't wash well, so they are being conned, the people who are buying these very cheap garments. So we need somehow to find a system whereby people will pay slightly more for a better garment and wear it for longer.
If you had to pick one garment from Fashion from Nature that's your absolute favourite, what would it be, Edwina?
I would pick the Ferragamo orange fibre outfit, but actually it consists of a wonderful shirt and a skirt. And it's made of a new fibre called orange fibre, which was developed from the waste products of the citrus industry in Sicily. I think it creates 700,000 tonnes of waste in Sicily every year, and it's blended in this garment with silk. The pattern evokes Sicily. It has a little very tiny pattern of oranges, lemons and figs.
Ferragamo is an iconic brand, so that's very exciting to see a leading fashion house using a super sustainable fibre. And it's also got the ingenuity to excite people.
Yes, people are very intrigued by these new fibres made from food waste because they can really understand that.
Fashion is a little bit like a dangerous relationship, that it's become dangerously unsustainable, and this exhibition encapsulates all of that. Having gone through this process, Edwina, are you hopeful that we will, as Attenborough told me, as the smartest mammal on the planet, innovate our way out of trouble?
I'm an optimist, so I would agree with Sir David Attenborough that humans are a very creative, innovative, ingenious species, and that there are ways forward. Ways forward are very, very important. And I hope that it will spawn other exhibitions in other museums around the world, because museums reach out to a lot of people. And yes, we need to be inspired, but also we need to take responsibility too. And I still believe we need to be more collective.
Thank you very much, Edwina Ehrman.